I need to start this video off by saying that I'm sorry. 10 months ago, PirateSoftware, also known as Thor, published a video talking about StopKillingGames, a pro-consumer movement started by Ross over at Accursed Farms to enable protections within the European Union that could snowball into the rest of the world when it comes to the preservation of games, as well as how customers would be treated when it comes to giving money in exchange for games that could potentially not work in the future. It is genuinely one of the very few times we've had actual power when it comes to legislation for the future of a medium that is currently just criminally underrepresented when it comes to legislation. It's a grassroots movement started by a YouTuber looking to protect not just games and what they bring and the passion that went into them at one point in time, but also us, the customer. 10 months ago, I recorded a video disputing a lot of the reasons why PirateSoftware said back then that StopKillingGames was actually bad for video games.
It's used car salesman garbage. This is shit. Not only do I not want to back this, I'm going to actively tell people not to. That is awful. That is a horrible goddamn direction. That's awful, dude. No. Eat my entire ass.
My channel was considerably smaller at the time, and I was afraid of being labeled a drama channel or trying to punch up to a very important and big creator. But the truth is that from the start, PirateSoftware misrepresented the movement and nitpicked things about it while completely misunderstanding it.
It would impact every live service game that exists, instead of just targeting single-player, always online games.
He misrepresents what the movement wants to do by saying that it requires every single multiplayer game in existence to have a sunset plan in transition to single-player viability, and how impossible it would make it for any developer to even want to attempt a multiplayer game if that were a requirement, when all the movement says is that they are required to either very transparently inform people up front of the situation, or have in place a plan to keep the game available for people, or otherwise give the customer recourse to keep the game functional, which would mean things like allowing people to run private servers once official support for the game ends. He, over many different occasions, actively attacks the movement and actively attacks anybody who would be willing to support it, saying that they don't know things that he does because he knows more than anybody else. I don't know if you knew this, but he used to work at Blizzard, and that automatically makes him very smart.
It's 100% your worst take ever? No, it's not. You know what I did before this? I worked at Blizzard.
I don't know if you guys know this, but PirateSoftware actually started working at Blizzard when Blizzard started making worse games. So he obviously knows more about video games than anybody else. Did I mention that he worked at Blizzard?
I worked at Blizzard. So when I worked at Blizzard, when I first started at Blizzard.
So two things. The most important one is that StopKillingGames in the United Kingdom is now through. There are enough signatures for it to be debated in Parliament, and it is almost at the finish line within the European Union. And this whole debacle with Thor has actually given it enough publicity to come back and actually make that goal right on time. And while we're still a few signatures away, if you are in the European Union, please click the link down below and support it, because this is important. The second thing is that I started this video by saying that I am sorry, because I am. I should have spoken up sooner. See, PirateSoftware says that nobody refuted him on his claims, and that's not true either. As this whole thing has sprung up again, he has doubled down and said that it is not his fault that he made misleading claims that actually hurt something that is good for everybody. It's the fault of everybody else for not refuting his claims and educating him better on it while he spoke as an authority.
Yeah, Hutcher, I did. I think it's really hilarious to me that that entire community is so butt mad at me for putting out a video 10 months ago about their stuff and then not being refuted, and now it's my fault that everything is going wrong for them.
This is, of course, not true. Plenty of people, including Ross himself, constantly refuted all of his claims. But I should have been one of the voices there as well. And you see, the damage that PirateSoftware has caused to this movement is incalculable. You can hear it from Ross in his own words.
I admit, guys, this part hurts. to see the biggest voice on this issue get it wrong again and again and again, then put that same wrong information on blast to a far bigger audience than we can reach. It hurts. He doesn't get it. He doesn't understand what we're asking for.
Many different creators have spoken out on this, saying that whenever they have talked about it, they've received tons of people that are pushing back on it because of what Thor has said about it, regarding him as an expert in the field. And because of that, for the rest of this video, whether it's needed or not anymore, especially if maybe you are one of the people still on the fence about signing, I want to do my best of covering a bit of what StopKillingGames intends to do from a particularly unique perspective. See, I've been lucky enough to work within the European Union for many years, specifically in positions as a consultant very close to legal processes. I've worked regarding manufacturing laws in the EU, labor laws in the EU, and very importantly, data privacy laws within the European Union. And that means that I am quite familiar with how legal processes go within the EU, and I can offer at least some insight into it, not those of a lawyer or a lawmaker, but enough to understand it from more than a consumer's perspective. Now, I know for some people, maybe the years that I spent dealing with these things directly aren't equal in measure to somebody who worked at Blizzard. And please, some of you might think that it's not necessary to listen to anything or care about it anymore because the signatures are already there. Just make sure that yours is first. But I still have to do this for my own conscience because people have told me that I should talk about it, and as I said before, I should have done it a long time ago instead of being a coward. I am willing to admit my faults and grow from my mistakes to the best of my ability to become better at what I do and make sure that I offer you the best I can. I'm just saying that maybe if I had worked at Blizzard, I wouldn't be capable of that. So hi, I'm Mug, and if you're new here, welcome. And if you're not new here, welcome back. I feel pretty bad about myself today, but you shouldn't, because you look fantastic. We're going to delve just a bit deeper into StopKillingGames in today's video, and if you enjoy any part of it, make sure to hit the like button because that helps the video reach farther and spread out in the algorithm. And if you like the way that I put everything I have into video games and how cool they are and everything that they can be, as well as our rights as customers, please keep watching the video. And if you really like what I do, you can subscribe when you're confident that I've earned that subscription. The most important thing to keep in mind when looking at today's topic is that over the last 25 years or so, video games, along with many other consumer products, have changed, and not necessarily for the better. Be it from small ways like how they are designed to larger things like how they are monetized or used as continuous vessels for profit, but also in more directly transformative ways in things like always online video games or just how much effort is put into conservation of them and treating them as art. There's been this gradual but very significant shift in how we are treated. We used to be considered customers, and artists wanted to create something beautiful with video games, experiment with it, and have us enjoy it. And now we are treated as consumers, and the difference between that in language is massive. Consumers are meant to consume. Customers are entitled to rights. They want us to be mindless and simply accept that which we are fed as if we have no other option. We are meant to constantly consume everything that is put in front of us without ever thinking twice. We are no longer people enjoying things, we are numbers on a spreadsheet that is then put in front of shareholders to make them clap. It is in this change that the combination of video games and the internet appears, and not for the benefit of us. Online games, while super fun and cool and something to enjoy, also come with a lot of problems and dangers, and one of the people who had been shouting these problems out from the rooftops is Ross over at Accursed Farms, which you might now know as the StopKillingGames guy. But for many others, and I hope you do check out his channel, he's also just a guy who makes really funny YouTube video essays and reviews of games, often overlooked games from the past. I'm incredibly thankful to Ross, not just for StopKillingGames, but for being one of the inspirations that I've always had for starting a YouTube channel. Ross started doing something called Dead Game News, where he looked at different games that had reached end of service. effectively disappearing, now unplayable, their discs becoming pieces of plastic to throw into a landfill with no real way of actually playing them again. And he was not happy. I don't think anybody should be happy. Just conceptually, it's really sad that something that hundreds of people worked on suddenly isn't playable anymore, and that the people who love it can no longer enjoy it. It doesn't matter if it was super successful or not, it's just a shame. And we've seen time and time again how things like it happening with films or music is a big problem that people then actively want to correct. But in video games, it seems to just be, you know, the standard. While tons and tons of single-player video games simply are lost to time, it is a much bigger and more prominent issue today that games that require some sort of online connection are the ones to have that end of service and no longer be playable, even if they technically don't require their online connections. And Ross found the perfect opportunity to attack this issue legally. When Ubisoft shut down the servers for The Crew, they effectively shut down the game, despite it being a game that, at least from the customer's perspective, could function perfectly fine without any sort of online connection. Sure, there was an online component to the game, but that doesn't mean that without the online component, the game couldn't function. Most of what the game offers doesn't need to be online. I think a good analog for it would be something like Dark Souls 1. Sure, is it important that there are messages on the ground and you can summon other people or get invaded? Yes, but can the game function without the servers? Of course. That's not needed. But the fact that The Crew was just not going to work anymore, period, and that it was still a game that technically you could go into a store and buy a disc that just didn't work anymore, well, that was a very serious issue when it comes to customers. And also it gave me like flashbacks of Shadowrun for Xbox 360. Does anybody remember that game? That game was really good. I mean, it wasn't Shadowrun, but you know. This situation, and specifically how Ubisoft had handled it in the terms of sale of the game, meant that Ross had an opportunity to gather different experts and present into European Parliament a petition where they would have to look at this issue and force legislation onto it. And Ross, in my opinion, did quite an admirable job of explaining it and keeping up to date with it and making sure that people were properly informed. But the truth is that it is an incredibly complicated thing to really explain to people, and it is asking a lot of the average viewer to have the necessary attention span and overall understanding of the topic when maybe you don't have the best ways of explaining it, not because Ross is bad at it, but because I think he's more the type of person similar to me. We require our time to kind of get to things. We're not TikTok pilled. But overall, he explained that this circumstance could lead to what would be legislation, or at least contemplation of legislation within the European Parliament to have protections for customers when it comes to the discontinuation of service of video games, guaranteeing in one measure or another that games, when they reach end of life, are actually still viable. Either have a plan in order to keep them alive, that different video game preservation options are contemplated before a game can be actually set for sale, or that very strict regulations are in place to inform customers that a game can end before they purchase it, which was not the case with something like The Crew and still isn't the case with a lot of different games. To do this by obtaining signatures from European Union citizens, they could force the issue into Parliament, and from here, that's actually quite a complicated thing. Now, one of the many ways in which Thor, PirateSoftware, misrepresented Ross's attempts at things in his own disparaging video and later remarks on StopKillingGames, which he actively, as you might have seen, actively recommends people don't support.
Not only do I not want to back this, I'm going to actively tell people not to.
Is that it doesn't contemplate enough of the realities of video game development, and that because of that, it will harm video game makers who will have to inflate their budgets, their plans, and do all of these fancy things in order to even make a game just because they want to use something regarding the internet. Basically saying that what Ross was doing was misinformed, and that because I don't know if you guys knew this, but he used to work at Blizzard. So Thor knows a lot more about this, and the black and white approach here would harm, not help. I always found it very funny that his point of this was that apparently one of the points and one of the options that Ross was looking at within European Parliament would be something that if the signatures went through and it was presented would work that way, and not at all how things actually work in EU Parliament. Which, brief aside, trust me when I'm not just showing you the easily Googleable information about how laws are passed in the EU, but my own personal experience with it, that the way this works is that if a petition is approved, the corresponding lawyers who are going to bring the issue of legislation to Parliament are just the beginning. And from there, Parliament needs to actually create a committee that is basically for this and a committee against it. And it is the responsibility of the members of Parliament to, over the course of potentially 2 years, bring different hearings to Parliament where they represent every single possible side of the issue. That means customer advocacy groups, as well as video game developers. Trust me, Ubisoft would speak in Parliament about how what they're doing is actually great, and customer advocacy groups would get to speak about how it's terrible. And among all of that, information would be obtained and a decision would be reached over many, many sessions of deliberation of what, if any, law needs to be implemented in order to protect who. Now, while it is true that the European Union does tend to side with the customer above everything else, they're not stupid, and they won't actively do something that is going to just deny giant corporations from selling massive profit-earning and tax-earning things in the region. Nor would they do that sort of thing without offering a transition plan and even financial aid to developers in order to get certain things in motion. But no, somebody like Thor would have you believe that it's just going to harm them, because now preparing an end-of-life service for games seems really easy on the surface, but it's actually incredibly difficult if you knew anything about game development, you idiot. As if that were A, the only option, and B, and as if he were informed in the last years of what actually is the production pipeline of a video game. But hey, what would I know? I'm just the guy that, instead of misrepresenting European law and legislation, actually knows something about it and am now speaking up on it. So hey, he did work at Blizzard, so he just might be right. So let me make it clear. Stop Killing Games is not an order. It is not taking control over the industry. It is opening a necessary dialogue. This is precisely why things like legislation happen. Because sometimes the disconnect between us, the customer, and them, the people making the game, and more importantly, selling the product, selling to the consumer, is so irrevocably broken that we need a mediator. And in this case, the mediator are lawmakers that are going to carefully study the situation and make sure that we reach something that is beneficial to all parties if possible. Unless they reach the conclusion that what these people are doing when it comes to selling games that they can then just make disappear is just unacceptable to a degree that requires immediate action. But don't worry, guys, there's lobbyists in the European Union as well, so we are seeing more and more of this every day. A recent headline shows that Brazil is looking to take potential legal action against Nintendo for the methods that they have included within the Switch 2 to brick the system if people were to tamper with it in ways that they don't find correct. Really blurring the line between what is hardware that you own as a customer that you paid for and hardware that is fundamentally acting as a service that you need to use on the terms and conditions of the person that sold it to you. When you tamper with it, you're not doing the typical old style thing of like, oh, you refuse right to warranty and repair, and like you are responsible for what you do with the thing. No. Now, the company can just say, you don't get to use this anymore. It's a piece of plastic, which isn't very different from going to buy a physical disc or paying for a game online and then having it not work anymore. Everything about Stop Killing Games is a benefit to us, the customer. And if the industry needs to shift in a direction where preservation and making sure that the games that exist are either more trending towards leaving something that can still function in 10 years, then so be it. That would be good for the customer and arguably with the obsession that so many developers have with online functionality or creativity in the industry as well. And to be clear, is there a legitimate concern that something like this could hamper the creativity of developers looking to use online systems in a game? Well, yes, that does exist, but it's an incredibly small risk that would have to make its way through the entire deliberation process in the European Union Parliament to ever reach that extreme of a final result. And in my opinion, it would be a small price to pay for setting us on a path where video games and us, the customers of them, are accurately represented in a way that allows us to have power. We need to stop the killing of games. And we also need to stop people who pretend that they give a shit about video games, about you as a customer, about this medium in its entirety, from having such powerful voices that they can shut down initiatives that are here to help us. Many YouTubers have spoken out before, but I want to mention one that, by the way, I don't know why this is true, but I get compared to them in the Spanish community, but Mr. Batybait has talked about StopKillingGames and even went as far as to refute PirateSoftware's video point by point, basically 10 months ago. Yes, this very same video that PirateSoftware now is saying that nobody refuted, and that's what lets him get away with his misguided and misinformed comments. Mr. Batybait has said that he received numerous comments of people saying that while what he was saying made sense, they trusted PirateSoftware and his authority and his knowledge as a game developer in believing that this wasn't something worth following and that it was actually done too kind of impulsively and with not enough planning in order to actually be beneficial, when in reality, you need to be impulsive just to get it through the door, and then it's in the hands of the experts. And just to reiterate that, the harm that PirateSoftware caused to this movement that is now at the time of recording almost through the finish line in the EU and is past the finish line to bring it into the UK Parliament for discussion, was affected by PirateSoftware in communities that don't even speak English. And that is why I keep apologizing, because while I'm not here to be a watchdog, but I am here to call out bad actors, be they console makers, developers, publishers, investors, and yes, I guess starting today, influencers who decide to go against the customer's best interests because God fucking damn it, we need somebody fighting for us. And this sort of lying to people, of convincing people of something that is actually bad for them. I shouldn't have stood by and just let that go for the sake of my channel. I should have stuck to my guns. I'm sorry, I won't let it happen again. PirateSoftware does not deserve to be taken seriously when it comes to matters of what is important to the customer, to our rights, or to what is good for the industry. Because he has proven time and time again that he is willing to sue small developers for things that aren't even real, that he is willing to throw the clout of having worked at Blizzard as an excuse of why people are stupid and don't understand the problems of game development in order to justify and defend some of the most heinous practices in the industry, and is slowly brainwashing people into precisely being a consumer and not a customer. From here, all I can say is stop killing games. Go support Ross. Go support Accursed Farms. Make sure that you care about your rights. And please make sure that you enjoy video games. There's a couple more videos coming out this very week, and they won't be as charged as this one. They'll be a lot more fun and talking about great games and great game mechanics that I think are great. But also, we're almost at 100,000 subscribers, which to me is I can't even just, but I do have big plans for it. And if you also believe that you're a customer and you're tired of being told you're a consumer, I think you're really going to enjoy the 100K celebration. So if you want more of what I do here on YouTube, remember to subscribe. I've been Mug. Thank you for watching. Thank you to the members and patrons up on the wall who directly financially support what I do and afford me the luxury to take my time and make the best videos I can. Go out there, have some fun, enjoy the absolutely beautiful thing that we have called video games, keep fighting for them, and I'll see you again very soon.